Hey guys, I thought I'd make a follow-up video to my Blog TV debate with Keane. All in all, it went pretty well, with a few minor issues but nothing too significant. I'd like to thank everyone who recorded it and everyone who chose to mirror it on YouTube. I'm pretty sure Brett now has me blocked on Skype, and I've had no interaction with him since he sat there and hung up on me during the event. One thing that became very apparent during our discussion is that sitting has become such an integral part of his lifestyle that Brett imagines everyone and everything to be sitting at all times.
When someone sits there, sitting there, I will sit here, you sit there, sit there. Coughlin sat there, and everybody was sitting there getting into that. He sat there, his video's still sitting up there. I sat there, you're sitting there, and you can sit there, sitting there for a while. I did sit there. It was all sitting in notepads, basically just sitting there. Gotta sit there and, go to the bathroom. Sat there. I used to sit there and sit here and sit there. You sit there, I might have sat here, and they sat there, and I'm sitting here, sat there, and sitting there. I sit there, and I'm sitting there. He sit there, and he just sat there. And why would I sit there, sat there, sitting here, sit there, and everybody would sit there, and go for that. Sit here.
Now, the first thing I'd like to cover is the DMCA topic that I brought up. Brett denied having ever been involved in the filing of DMCAs in his name. When I mentioned the fact that he had Firefly 515 file DMCAs in his name years ago, he claimed that the two of them had simply made a parody video about that, and that no claims were ever filed. Although I don't think anyone buys his parody story for a second, you just never know. When I told him that it obviously wasn't a parody, if for no other reason because people began receiving DMCAs 24 hours later, he asked if I had any evidence. Unfortunately, I didn't anticipate such a ridiculous explanation from him, so I wasn't prepared for it. So just in case anyone happens to be sitting on the fence on this one, here's a clip of a video that Firefly 515 made after losing his little E-War.
Recently, I decided to fight an E-War with a bunch of haters and trolls. They were attacking a friend of mine. I did what any friend would do. I stood up and defended him and started fighting for him against the haters and trolls. I knew from the very beginning that I would probably lose and get suspended, but I was willing to take that chance and do the right thing. I did lose, and my worst fears did happen, but at least I know that I was a true friend and did the right thing. I have a clear conscience on the matter. This is to all the haters out there that I have been fighting against. I understand why you hate Brett Keane. Now, I have to be honest with all of you. I hate what I have become in this E-War. I have become what I was fighting against. I compromised my morals, my values, my beliefs, in my Christianity, and what I wanted to accomplish here on YouTube. For that, I apologize to the community of YouTube, my subscribers, and to the haters out there. I cannot live with myself being this way anymore.
In other words, he did indeed start a war by filing DMCAs for Brett, and it bit him in the ass. It was no parody. Anyway, Brett stuck to his story, and I moved on. I brought up the fact that he addressed me as Edward in comments, the name of my friend that appeared in the counter notifications that were filed in response to DMCA claims made against me in Brett's name, DMCA claims that resulted in the suspension of my channel. This is where it got fun, because on this topic, Brett had not just telegraphed his punch, he swung before I even left my corner. Earlier in the week, he had sent me this PM. If he had simply left it at that, I would have had no idea what he was talking about, and it may have thrown me for a bit of a loop during the debate. However, hours after sending me that message, he posted this video on Brett Keane Jr.'s channel.
But I will add a link in the description of this video that I got. Actually, I heard about this page a while ago and I'd forgotten about it, but I was talking to the Edward.
After some correspondence with Gimme a Break Man, we were able to locate the original video and I prepared a clip.
But I will add a link in the description of this video that I got. Actually, I heard about this page a while ago and I'd forgotten about it, but I was talking to the Japundit guy, Edward, over at Japundit.com. By the way, he does the podcast Japan Talk. I think it's .org.com. I'll put the links in the description.
When Brett brought it up live, I was grinning from ear to ear. The irony here is that Brett's original story for where he came across the name Edward, while being an obvious lie, was actually plausible. He had claimed at least twice that he found it from a Google search, And while his story was shady and didn't hold up to the least bit of scrutiny, it probably would have been believed by anyone who didn't know any better. But right before the debate, Brett thought he had come up with an even better lie. He failed miserably. Just the editing job of the video, which he admitted to making himself, speaks volumes about his intent to deceive. But the fact that the Gimme a Break Man video was made almost a year after Brett left those comments is 100% proof that he was lying about his source, and that is 100% proof that he was in fact responsible for filing DMCAs on me and surely a whole host of other people at that time. Though it was clear that only time travel would make his claim possible.
Oh shit, Brett, you drove a DeLorean that looked like the same fucking car that Marty McFly used in Back to the Future.
He clung to the story like it was a fucking life preserver. So I moved on to the false editorial reviews for one of his books on Amazon.com, particularly the one attributed to his own magazine that never published a single issue and was linked to his former personal website. Brett's tactic in dealing with this subject was to list off a whole bunch of random shit to try to confuse everyone.
GodHatesYou.com, Yahoo Chat, Shoutcast, Winamp, Widget. That website got hacked. Forum, MP3s, and all that. A lot of atheists on YouTube have used Lulu. Serpent's Cradle Radio, Amazon, WordPress, a Notepad, Barnes & Nobles, that and everything. Amazon store, BrettKeane.com, friends page, people type things and stuff like that.
Then he pretended to not know what I was talking about.
And which link are you talking about, though?
And he even tried to blame it on the famous Mike and Steve.
There's probably either a guy that I knew back then and stuff named Steve or Mike and stuff. It could have either been Mike or it could have been Steve in this situation.
But after all the beating around the bush, what his explanation really boiled down to was, what's the big deal? The book doesn't sell anyway. When I brought up his past plagiarism of the Judy Burnett poem, it was clear from his voice that he didn't like where this was going.
I never plagiarized anybody's stuff.
He eventually accused me of doctoring his video. The problem here is that in all the times he recounted being exposed by Judalicious, he never once claimed that she doctored his video. He only claimed that he credited the author in his description. The copy I played was his original, and the exact same as the one Judalicious showed in her expose. At this point, Brett's wife started getting involved, trying to help him get his story straight. I started hearing them whisper to each other while I was talking or playing clips, and at one point Brett muted his mic. This all culminated in his rage quit, after he ranted about everyone being trolls and juveniles editing videos to fuck him over. For the next couple of days, Brett was pretty quiet on YouTube, except for a nonsensical video about the debate that he made with J-Dub and some other douche, which really only served to make fun of Brett himself.
Is it true that back in 1962, you stared out at a window at some people that were getting on your nerves, and you actually fantasized about taking your guitar, running down the street, and hitting them with it? Speak now, don't hold back now.
All right, well, actually, I was born in the 80s, so it's kind of impossible, but what I was able to do is I was able to take a time machine back to the 60s.
And recently, he seems to have given up on atheists and is now pandering to Christians, claiming that he believes that because Christians gave him the most money in his last e-begging episode, his prayers were answered and he has to rethink his theological stance. In other words, atheists have his number, so he's going where the suckers are. So I want to deliver a cautionary tale to any theists welcoming Mr. Keane with open arms. The next thing I was going to bring up on Blog TV is the timeline of his past year of e-begging. In June 2010, Brett claimed that the owner of his home was in financial trouble and the property was going up for auction.
On the 11th of this month, our home and a lot of other people's homes are going up for some kind of auction thing.
He said that he would almost surely be evicted, and he asked people for financial help to get a lawyer and to pay for moving expenses and first month's rent. People sent him money, and of course, he was never evicted. The money went into his pocket. Then, Brett, who supposedly had zero contingency money, was living hand-to-mouth and couldn't even scrounge moving costs, bought a $300 Xbox Slim sometime after.
There's a Nintendo Wii, which would be a gift for the boy. He does have an Xbox Slim.
We know this because the Xbox Slim was released after his e-begging. This means that either he lied about his situation, or he's astoundingly irresponsible with the little money he has. The following December, he made a video introducing his viewers to an Amazon wish list containing over $2,300 worth of luxury items. This seems greedy at best, until you take into account the fact that the following month he turned around and claimed he hadn't paid rent since October.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brett Keane. I received a phone call today stating that payments have not been made on the home since October, which is basically totaling out to around $2,300.
What kind of a guy who's 2 months behind on rent asks for video games and cameras instead of rent money? Again, either dishonest or astoundingly irresponsible. So in January, he asked for about $2,300, claiming that he was about to be evicted. People sent him money again. In February, despite being in such dire financial straits, he added a new item to his Amazon wish list. The man who was supposedly in desperation and was forced to humiliate himself by asking for handouts had new microphones on his mind. The following month, he asked for even more cash. This time, he claimed that his year-long contract with the new homeowner was up and he could be evicted at any moment.
The paperwork that we had with these people, it's gone. It's pretty much, it's no longer valid anymore. Not gone like it flew away or a fucking dog ate it, but basically our contract with this new company is up. They gave us a year, and they're not even obligated to have us fucking stay here anymore. Being that we are under no obligation by these people who actually own the land now, and the banks and everything else, they pretty much are going to end up sooner or later probably sending the goddamn cops up to my fucking place and having us put out on the fucking street. We don't have a contract with them anymore, so there is no 30 days, 90 days where we can just sit on our ass and try to figure out a solution.
An interesting assertion, since it still hasn't been a year since his home was supposedly auctioned. It's important to point out that right after advertising his Christmas wish list, and also while he was asking for money in March, he decided to put his kids in videos, a transparent strategy to manipulate his viewers. All of this should paint a very clear picture. Either he's lying about his situation in order to sponge off his viewers, or he'll very likely squander any money he's given. I'm actually inclined to believe that it's both. In my questioning of Brett, I was building up to asking why he told two different stories about his abuse charges. That's when I really expected the sparks to fly. However, at this point I don't really think that it's necessary to delve into that, but I am willing to provide the evidence to whoever may be interested. And I'd like to close with a message to Brett. Brett, in the comments you left when trying to drop my docs, you threatened me with legal action. I'm wondering what sort of legal action you had in mind. It occurs to me that maybe the FBI would be interested in hearing about a person on YouTube making repeated claims of impending eviction and health problems while asking for money. If you're not telling the whole truth, it's clear-cut fraud, and people go to jail for that. I also wonder if you've declared any of those donations as income. Tax season just ended, after all. If you want to talk about the law, things can get complicated really quickly when you make claims and accept charity. I'm not saying that I'd actually contact law enforcement. What I am saying is maybe you should think twice before running your stupid fucking mouth and trying to bully people with threats of legal action. Food for thought, asshole. I'm probably done dealing with you for a while. I mean, it is Ignore Brett Keane month. But I reserve the right to expose you for the lying, greedy, conning hypocrite you are in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone.